So when you look at every major publication and any respected boxing news source, like for example the Ring magazine or any of them, you can look at several of these publications. You can look at several of them, and even though they might have it in different orders, like they might have Inoue as number 1 pound for pound or Usyk or Crawford, the top three pound for pound fighters in the sport right now is obviously Inoue, Terrence Crawford, and Oleksandr Usyk. They're the three pound for pound best fighters in the sport right now. Regardless of what order you put them in, they are considered the three pound for pound best fighters in the sport today. Now, one thing I find funny about that is obviously everyone's got an opinion. Some people think Inoue is the best pound for pound just because he's accomplished so much. He's beaten everyone decisively. Apart from the first Don Air fight, he's not had a competitive fight. Every fight has been a complete whitewash. Some people think it's Crawford, but since his last performance against Madrimov, a lot of people think maybe he's a little bit overrated. And there's a lot of people, myself included, who think it's Usyk because obviously he unified the cruiserweight division, became undisputed, not just unified it, became undisputed, and then he became undisputed at heavyweight. But if you look at all three fighters, the one similarity that they have is the fact that both of them have become undisputed in two weight classes. Obviously, Inoue became undisputed. I believe it was bantamweight and super bantamweight. Crawford became undisputed at light welterweight and welterweight, and Usyk became undisputed at cruiserweight, and now he's undisputed at heavyweight after he beat Tyson Fury. Now, in my opinion, in terms of who I think is number 1 pound for pound, in my opinion, I think is Usyk. Now, the reason why I think Usyk is number 1 pound for pound is the fact that if you look at his career, obviously he wiped out the entire cruiserweight division. But even before that, before he even turned professional, he was an Olympic gold medalist. Now, the other two fighters on the list, Inoue and Crawford, um, as much as they've accomplished in the professional ranks, they don't have that distinction. And I know a lot of people might say, "Oh, but what does the amateurs got to do with the professionals?" In my opinion, winning a medal in the Olympic Games is a bigger accomplishment than winning a world title. And the reason why I say that is the fact that in the Olympics, you can't duck and dodge fighters. You're in a tournament format and you have to fight the best. On top of that, it happens every 4 years, and it is considered so prestigious that the fact is, in certain countries, for example, Kazakhstan and Russia, an Olympic gold medal is held in higher regard than an actual world title. So you're literally going in there against competitors that have got hundreds of amateur fights. You can't avoid them. You have to fight the best, and literally you could be going in there with like a Cuban who's like a Rigondeaux who's a double gold medalist, or you could be going in there with a Ukrainian like Usyk, not Usyk, sorry, Vasyl Lomachenko, who's a double gold medalist. So you're literally fighting the best of the best, and you can't avoid them. In boxing, if you wanted to cherry pick, if you wanted to avoid certain competition to get a world title shot, you can do that. And you can win a world title. So the fact that Usyk is a Olympic gold medalist, and then he went on to become undisputed, and what you need to remember is with Usyk, when he went up in weight to the heavyweight division, when you think about the term pound for pound, you think about a fighter that could who, regardless of weight, is the best fighter in the world because of his accomplishments. When he went up to heavyweight, he was literally going in there theoretically against opponents that could weigh 10 stones heavier than him, that could have the reach advantage because he's coming from cruiserweight, and a height advantage. And then if you take all of that into account, he fought Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury is one of the biggest heavyweight champions that's ever lived. Don't get it twisted. You got fighters that are bigger, like for example, um that fighter that David Haye fought, I forgot his name. I think it's Valuev. Valuev is the biggest heavyweight champion in the world. But if you put it on a scale, Tyson Fury is probably top five biggest heavyweights that's ever existed. He's 6'9" or 6'7". Regardless, Usyk was going up against undeniable odds. He was going up against a skilled world champion. He was going up against somebody who's had who's undefeated, who's had the height advantage, reach advantage, weight advantage, and Usyk managed to beat him. Now, in my opinion, the fact that all three of them are double undisputed, they've become undisputed in two weight classes. Right now, in my opinion, Usyk is number 1 just because of the points that I raised before. But if you think about it logically, Crawford, I think Crawford has reached his ceiling. He can't go any further. So, like for example, his fight against Madrimov, a lot of people had Madrimov winning. So I think he's reached his ceilings. I mean, all of these talks about him fighting Canelo, I think he needs to shelve that because Canelo's just on another level. If you can't even beat Madrimov, who's a I think light middleweight, there's no way he's going to go up two more weight classes and fight Canelo, who's a super middleweight. The same way Canelo struggled against Bivol, and he was seen to be rudimentary, and he didn't seem to have any power to stun him or hurt him. It's a similar thing will happen with Crawford. If Crawford goes up and fights Canelo, and Canelo, let's be real, regardless of your criticism of him, he is an all-time great. The same way, for example, when Mikey Garcia went up in weight and fought Errol Spence, the way Errol Spence just completely manhandled him. And in terms of pound for pound, I think Mikey Garcia is a more skilled fighter than Errol Spence, but the difference in speed, height, weight, just mass and height and size was the deciding factor. So, in a way, Crawford has reached his limit. I don't think he's ever going to win, like become undisputed in another weight class. I just don't think it's going to happen. It could happen, but I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, if he was to become undisputed at light middleweight, that would be an incredible accomplishment. Becoming a three-time undisputed champion would be incredible, and it seems that he might get a fight at light middleweight against Fundora. So there could be a chance that he wins another world title. But for him to do that, and obviously he's won, I think, the WBO title against Madrimov. So he's got a chance to do it. But at the same time, I think he's reached his limit. If he tries to go up another weight class, I think he's going to get beat. And there's a potential that he gets beat in the current weight class that he's in. What is it, light middleweight? So he's reached his limit. Obviously, Alexander Usyk, he's reached his limit. He can't go up anymore. He can't go up to he's reached the limit. Heavyweight is the limit. So he can't go up another weight class. He's stuck. So now we get onto the case of Inoue. Inoue is younger than Crawford and Usyk. I think he's only 30 years old. For him to be 30 and have accomplished everything that he's accomplished, and now he's competing in another weight class, I believe. It's an incredible accomplishment. What you need to remember is, I believe Inoue could go up another weight class. He could potentially become undisputed in another weight class. And the fact is, he's young enough to do it as well. He's 30 years old. I think Crawford's like 35, 36. And obviously, I believe Usyk is 37. So, in terms of his contemporaries, in terms of his peers, in terms of his fellow combatants in the pound for pound rankings, like if you're looking at the top three, Inouye's very, very young and he's already accomplished what these fighters have accomplished, but he's managed to do it almost a decade earlier. He's managed to do it 5, 6 years earlier. He managed to do it years before Crawford did. He managed to do it years before Usyk did. So with that being said, I think in my prediction, I think there's a chance that Inoue surpasses both of them. Because for him to have accomplished what he's accomplished, and arguably he is number 1 pound for pound. Like you can make an argument that he is number 1 pound for pound, even though, in my opinion, I think Usyk is number 1 pound for pound. You can make an argument that Inoue is number 1 pound for pound. So the fact that he's even in the conversation to be number 1 pound for pound, and he's only 30 years old, right? And don't get it twisted, Inouye's not a perfect fighter. He's shown vulnerability. He's been dropped in fights. The Donaire fight, the first one, is very competitive. I think he broke his eye socket. So he's not this infallible fighter. But for him to be 30 years old, to have accomplished what he's accomplished, become double undisputed in 2 different weight classes, and plus um he's got the time advantage compared to Crawford. I think Crawford's close to retirement. He's near the twilight of his career. And then obviously you got Usyk. Usyk, I don't think is going to go on any further. After the rematch with Tyson Fury, I think he's going to retire as well. So taking all that into account, right? I think Inoue has the opportunity. I don't know if he's going to do it, but he's got the opportunity at least to surpass both of them in the future. He's got an opportunity to become undisputed in another weight class. He's young enough to do it, to accomplish more. But then again, there is one caveat to that. Fighters in the lower weight class do tend to age quicker because obviously they have to throw more punches. It's a lot more labor intensive. Like fighters in the higher weight classes, like heavyweight and such, they tend to age a bit better. So there could be a chance that he doesn't have as much time as we think he does. But at the same time, he's quite young in the sense that he's not taking that much abuse and damage in the ring. So with that being said, I think there's a chance that Inoue could potentially surpass Crawford and surpass Usyk in the future. But at this moment in time, in my opinion, um, the number 1 pound for pound fighter in the world is Usyk because of what I mentioned before. The competition he's surpassed, the fact that he went up to heavyweight, where he's regularly fighting fighters that are 30 to 40 pounds heavier than him, to have got the reach advantage, size advantage, weight advantage. What else is there? Height advantage. And on top of that, they're probably stronger than him, bigger than him. He's still managed to beat all of them, and he's beaten two of the best heavyweight champions of the last decade. For example, Anthony Joshua's beaten him twice, and he's already beaten Tyson Fury once. Obviously, the rematch is about to happen. There could be a chance that Fury gets his revenge, but I don't think it's likely to happen. I just don't think it's likely to happen. So, with that being said, right now the current king, the pound for pound king, in my opinion, is Usyk. For what I said before, but I think the future king is Inoue because he's younger, he's got more years ahead of him, and relatively speaking, he's not taking that much damage. Now, there was a time when I believe Crawford surpassed Inoue as well at one point, but at the same time, unfortunately for Crawford, he just doesn't have that many high profile names on his resume. I mean, like, say what you want about Usyk. Usyk has got high profile names on his resume. He's got the likes of Anthony Joshua. He's got the likes of Tyson Fury that he's beaten. He's beaten other fighters that may not be as big a name as them, but were pretty popular, like the Tony Bellews of the world and the Breeders of the world, and obviously other such fighters like that. He's managed to beat them as well, like the Derek Chisora of the world. So he's got a resume. With Crawford, he doesn't have as much of a resume, and Inouye's still young enough to create a bigger legacy, even though he doesn't have the best resume because he doesn't have he's got fighters like Donaire on his ledger as well. So with that being said, I just think right now, like I just said like 100 times, Inoue is the future of the pound for pound division. I think a couple more years, I think he could potentially become undisputed in a third weight class, and if he manages to accomplish that, then you can make a strong case that like he's one of the greatest lower weight fighters of the modern era. Easily make that case. Um, and Usyk doesn't have long left, and Crawford doesn't have long left. So right now, the current king, in my opinion, the pound for pound king right now is Usyk, and the future king is Inoue. Tell me what you think. Who do you think is number 1? Who do you think is number 2? Who do you think is number 3? And the fact that they're all undisputed in 2 different weight classes is an astounding accomplishment. Tell me what you think, and like and subscribe to the channel. I've got a lot more content coming your way. Peace.